The night everything broke between Nathan and his wife began with a question so soft it almost sounded harmless. Yet that single question carried the weight of years, of quiet disappointments, of sacrifices never noticed. When Rebecca finally asked him why he didn't seem to want her anymore, Nathan simply smiled, a tired, almost peaceful smile, and told her the truth that had been buried in his heart for far too long. He told her that the reason he had pulled away was simple. She had already given away what had once belonged to him. In that moment, the air in their small home in Columbus, Ohio felt heavy, as if the walls themselves understood the gravity of what had just been revealed. Before we continue this emotional story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, and the power of second chances. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Nathan Caldwell had once believed he was the luckiest man alive. Years earlier, when he met Rebecca during a rainy afternoon at a small bookstore cafe, she had seemed like the kind of person fate writes into your life only once. She laughed easily, believed in people even when they disappointed her, and had the kind of warm presence that made strangers feel welcome. Nathan, a quiet carpenter who built cabinets and furniture by hand, fell in love slowly but deeply. Rebecca worked as a nurse at a local hospital, and she often came home exhausted, but Nathan always admired how much she cared for others. They married in a modest ceremony in Tennessee, surrounded by friends and family. For the first few years, their life felt simple and beautiful. They bought a small house on the edge of Columbus, painted the walls together, and planted flowers in the front yard. On weekends, Nathan would work in the garage building furniture, while Rebecca sat nearby reading or talking about her day. They didn't have much money, but they had laughter, shared dreams, and a quiet understanding that seemed unbreakable. But life rarely stays the same. When Rebecca's mother became seriously ill, everything shifted. Rebecca's younger brother, Andrew, had struggled with addiction for years and couldn't help. Her father had passed away long ago. Suddenly, Rebecca became the only person holding her family together. She began sending money to Andrew, helping him cover rent and debts, while also paying for medical expenses for their mother. Nathan didn't question it at first. He loved Rebecca and wanted to support her. At the beginning, he admired her generosity. She worked extra shifts at the hospital, and Nathan took on more carpentry jobs to keep their own bills paid. But over time, something began to change. Rebecca's attention, energy, and affection slowly drifted away from their marriage. Her phone was always buzzing with calls from Andrew asking for help. Her thoughts were always somewhere else. She was constantly worried, constantly rushing, constantly giving pieces of herself to everyone except the man who had quietly stood beside her all along. Nathan never complained. Instead, he did what he had always done. He worked harder and loved quietly. When Rebecca came home exhausted, he cooked dinner. When she cried about her brother's latest crisis, he listened. When she sent money they didn't really have, he took extra work late into the night building custom tables and shelves for clients across Ohio. Years passed like this. And slowly Nathan began to feel something he had never expected to feel in his own marriage: invisible. It wasn't just the money. It wasn't even the endless emergencies with Andrew. It was the simple things that disappeared. The conversations that stopped happening. The evenings where Rebecca would sit across the room staring at her phone instead of talking. The way she stopped noticing when Nathan cut his hand at work or came home exhausted. The warmth between them faded not with a dramatic argument, but with thousands of quiet moments that never happened anymore. One winter evening, Nathan came home after delivering a handcrafted dining table to a client in Cleveland. He had driven nearly 3 hours through snow to finish the job. His hands were sore and cracked from the cold. He imagined Rebecca greeting him with the kind smile she used to give him. Instead, he walked into the living room to find her anxiously wiring another large sum of money to Andrew, who had once again gotten himself into trouble. She barely looked up when Nathan walked in. She only muttered that she was sorry, but she needed to handle this situation quickly. Nathan nodded, said nothing, and quietly went to the garage. That night, something inside him changed. It wasn't anger. It wasn't jealousy. It was something far quieter and far heavier, the realization that Rebecca had slowly given away all the emotional space that once belonged to their marriage. Years later, the consequences of that slow shift finally surfaced in the moment that began this story. Rebecca had noticed the distance growing between them. Nathan had stopped reaching for her hand. He stopped suggesting date nights. He stopped trying to start conversations that would end in silence anyway. When she asked why he didn't want her anymore, Nathan didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse her. Instead, he simply explained that what he had once needed from her, her attention, her partnership, her love, had been given away piece by piece to everyone else. Rebecca sat there stunned. For the first time in years, she saw their life clearly. She remembered the early mornings when Nathan used to make coffee and sit beside her before work. She remembered the nights he stayed up late fixing things around the house so she wouldn't have to worry. She remembered the way he always defended her choices, even when others criticized her. And suddenly she realized something painful. Nathan had never stopped loving her. He had simply stopped fighting for a place in her life where there was no room left. The silence between them that night lasted a long time, but something else appeared inside that silence, understanding. Rebecca finally began to see the years of quiet sacrifices she had overlooked. She saw the man who had stood beside her without demanding attention, without asking for praise, without ever threatening to leave. She realized that while she had been trying to save her family, she had slowly been losing the person who had always been her home. The next weeks were not easy. Rebecca began making difficult changes. She set boundaries with Andrew, refusing to keep rescuing him from every mistake. She reduced her overtime hours. For the first time in years, she started coming home early just to sit with Nathan, even if they didn't talk much at first. Nathan noticed the effort, but healing takes time. Trust grows slowly, just like distance once did. Some evenings they would sit on the porch watching the sunset over their quiet neighborhood. Other nights Nathan would show Rebecca new pieces he was building in the garage. Little by little, conversations returned, laughter returned, and most importantly, presence returned. Rebecca began to understand that love isn't just about sacrifice, it's about remembering the person who walks beside you every day. And Nathan, though cautious, began to let his heart open again. If this story has touched your heart so far, please take a moment to comment and tell us where you're watching from. Your messages mean more than you know. Months later, on a warm spring evening, Nathan and Rebecca planted new flowers in their front yard, just like they had done during their first year of marriage. It felt symbolic somehow. Not a fresh start exactly, but a repaired foundation. Rebecca had learned that sometimes love doesn't disappear. Sometimes it simply waits quietly in the corner of a room, hoping someone will notice it again. And Nathan had learned that honesty, even when painful, can sometimes save what silence slowly destroys. Before this story ends, here is a special request. If you believe relationships can survive mistakes, write the word hope in the comments. Because the truth is, not every marriage ends when something is broken. Some relationships grow stronger when people finally see what truly matters. If this story moved you, made you reflect on your own relationships, or reminded you of someone who deserves appreciation today, please like the video, share it with someone who might need to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more heartfelt stories. Sometimes the most powerful words in a marriage aren't grand promises. Sometimes they are simply the quiet realization that love is still there, waiting to be chosen again.